4. Jos 24. 25, 26. JG 9. 6. Some scholars link the big tree of Muanim with the big trees of Merah. JG 9. 37. Merah was perhaps the name of the original owner of the plot near Shechem that had one especially prominent tree or a clump or grove of big trees. 2. The name of a hill, in the vicinity of which the Midianites were defeated by Gideon. JG 7. 1. This hill is generally thought to be the bare grey ridge of Jebel Tahigiv at Hamor, about 8 kilometers 5 mi of the suggested site for the well of Herod. Moresheth Moresh Middle.eth, Moresheth Gath possession of Gath. Apparently the home of the prophet Micah. Girotextoi acute Muritra Longo, Mortar, I-433 with the taking of a census. 2-24. 16-25. 1ch21. 15-28. 2ch3. 1. Sierona. Ancient Jewish tradition links the temple site with the mountain in the land of Moriah where Abraham, at God's command, attempted to offer up Isaac. GE 22. 2. See Jewish Antiquities, 7, 329-334 13, 4. This would make the land of Moriah the Mount Venus region around Jerusalem. It was to the land of Moriah that Abraham traveled from the vicinity of Beersheba. And on the third day, he saw that divinely designated place from a distance. GE 21. 33, 34. 22. 4, 19. Some have objected to identifying Mount Moriah with the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, because of its distance from Beersheba and its lack of visibility from a distance. But it was to the land of Moriah that Abraham was to make a trip. On the first day, Abraham rose early, saddled his ass, split the wood, loaded it on the animal, and then began his trip. GE 22. 2, 3. It was on the third day that Abraham raised his eyes and began to see the place the land of Moriah from a distance. Thus, the second day was the only full day of travel. As to the visibility of Mount Moriah and the traveling distance, the Illustrated Bible Dictionary notes. However, the distance from Es Philistia to Jerusalem is c. 80 kilometers, which might well have required 3 days to traverse, and in Genesis the place in question is not a Mount Mori but one of several mountains in the land of that name, and the hills on which Jerusalem stands are visible at a distance. There is no need to doubt therefore that Abraham's sacrifice took place on the site of later Jerusalem, if not on the Temple Hill. Edited by J. Douglas, 1980, Volume 2, p. 1025. Therefore, the trip of some 80 kilometers 50 mi on foot from Beersheba to Mount Moriah would conceivably have taken more than 2 full days. Mount Moriah evidently was far enough from the Salem of Abraham's time that the attempted sacrifice of Isaac did not take place in full view of the city's inhabitants. There is no record that these witnessed the incident or tried to interfere. That the site was somewhat isolated centuries later may be deduced from the fact that in David's day there was a threshing floor on Mount Moriah. However, no mention is made of any buildings on the site. 2ch3. 1. Today the Islamic shrine known as the Dome of the Rock is situated atop Mount Moriah. See Jerusalem later periods. Mortar, a vessel having a bowl-shaped interior in which grain, spices, olives, or other substances were pulverized by pounding with a pestle. Egyptian tomb paintings depict mortars with considerable capacity. These were probably wooden mortars, and likely the pestles were made of metal. One tomb painting shows 2 men at one mortar, alternately raising and dropping metal pestles club-shaped at both ends, which they gripped at the center with both hands. The painting indicates that after a quantity of material in the mortar had been pounded sufficiently, it was sifted into another container and the coarser remains were returned to the mortar for further pounding. In the wilderness the Israelites prepared manna for consumption by grinding it in hand mills or pounding it in a mortar heb. Mdhomiddle.car. U11. 7, 8. The finest olive oil was obtained by beating the olives in a mortar with a pestle. This produced oil from only the olive meat, whereas a press crushed the seeds also. Pure, beaten olive oil was required for burning in the lampstand in the tent of meeting. Beaten oil was also used in connection with the constant burnt offering and evidently in the holy anointing oil. Incense beaten into powder was used in the sanctuary. X 27. 20, 21. 29. 40, 42. 30. 23-25, 35, 36. Since a mortar has a hollow interior, it is suitably used in the Bible to describe the configuration of a specific land area. For instance, according to Judges 15. 18, 19, God provided drinking water for Samson by splitting open Otex to acute Muritra Longo mortar, 434 or mortar quarter heb. Make middle tesh, meaning mortar, may have been so named to identify a basin-like hollow or depression in that area of the city. Zep 1. 11, FTN. Grain reduced to flour in a mortar undergoes very severe treatment. Therefore, the scriptures use this procedure illustratively, saying, even if you should pound the foolish one fine with a pestle in a mortar heb. Bam middle make middle tesh, in among cracked grain, his foolishness will not depart from him. PR 27. 22. Mortar, 2. A composition that is applied between bricks and stones to cement them together as in a wall, or that is used as a wall coating. But 14. 42, 45. 1 ch 29. 2. Isla 54. 11. J 43. 9. A weather-resistant mixture properly termed mortar of lime, sand, and water was used in the construction of the finer homes in ancient Palestine. Another type of mortar, used as plaster, was prepared by blending sand, ashes, and lime. Sometimes oil was added to the mixture, or the wall was coated with oil after it was plastered, to produce a nearly waterproof surface. In Egypt even up to modern times mortar used for wall plaster has been composed of 2 parts clay, 1 part lime, and 1 part straw and ashes. Instead of conventional mortar, the builders of the Tower of Babel used bitumen, which served as mortar for them. GE 11. 3. The later Babylonians likely obtained their bitumen for mortar from the subterranean fountains near the city of Hit located not far from Babylon on the Euphrates River. According to Herodotus I, 179, hot asphalt bitumen was used as cement, or mortar, when building up the sides of Babylon's moat and when constructing the city's wall. While the Israelites were slaves in Egypt, the Egyptians kept making their life bitter with hard slavery at clay mortar and bricks. X1. 14. The mortar was mixed to about the consistency of molasses, usually by trampling it with the feet. Chopped straw was combined with the mortar to increase the cohesiveness of the mixture. Later, in their own land, clay mortar and mud bricks served the Israelites as basic building materials in areas where little good quality building stone was available. Mud bricks were not lastingly resistant to wet weather. Therefore, in order to protect a new wall or to save and strengthen a damaged wall, a coat of mortar, or plaster, was sometimes applied. However, if only whitewash or bad mortar containing little or no lime was daubed on such a wall, it could not be expected to withstand a severe storms. Compare IS 13. 11-16. Mosera mo middle ra, Moseroth mo middle roth. The place where the Israelites were encamped when Aaron died. 10. 6. It was evidently near Mount Hor whereon Aaron died, but its exact location is unknown. New 33. 38. The plural form of Mosera, Moseroth, appears at Numbers 33. 30, 31 and apparently refers to an earlier Israelite encampment there. Moses drawn out, that is, saved out of water. Man of the true God, leader of the nation of Israel, mediator of the law covenant, prophet, judge, commander, historian, and writer. As 3. 2. Moses was born in 1593 BCE in Egypt, being the son of Amram, the grandson of Kohath, and the great-grandson of Levi. His mother Jochebed was Kohath's sister. See, however, Jochebed. Moses was 3 years younger than his brother Aaron. Miriam their sister was some years older. X6. 16, 18, 20. 2. 7. Early life in Egypt. Moses, a divinely beautiful child, was spared from Pharaoh's genocidal decree commanding the destruction of every newborn Hebrew male. He was hidden by his mother for 3 months, then placed in a papyrus ark among the reeds by the bank of the Nile River, where Pharaoh's daughter found him. Through the wise action of his mother and sister, Moses came to be nursed and trained by his mother in the employment of the daughter of Pharaoh, who then adopted him as her son. As a member of Pharaoh's household, he was otextoi acute miritra longo. Moses 435. Actually, Moses felt that the time had come that he would be able to give the Hebrews salvation. But they did not appreciate his efforts, and Moses was forced to flee from Egypt when Pharaoh heard of the slaying of the Egyptian. Acts 2. 11-15. Acts 7. 23-29. 40 years in Midian. It was a long journey across wilderness territory to Midian, where Moses sought refuge. There, at a well, Moses' courage and readiness to act forcefully to help those suffering injustice again came to the fore. When shepherds drove away the 7 daughters of Jethro and their flock, Moses delivered the women and watered the flocks for them. As a result, he was invited to Jethro's house, where he entered Jethro's employment as a shepherd for his flocks and eventually married one of Jethro's daughters, Zipporah, who bore him 2 sons, Gershom and Eliezer. Acts 2. 16-22. 18. 2-4. Training for future service. While it was God's purpose to deliver the Hebrews by the hand of Moses, God's due time had not yet arrived. Neither was Moses yet qualified to serve over God's people. He had to undergo another 40 years of training. The qualities of patience, meekness, humility, long-suffering, mildness of temper, self-control, and learning to wait on Jehovah needed to be developed in him to a higher degree, in order for him to be the fitting one to lead God's people. He had to be groomed and prepared to endure the discouragements, disappointments, and hardships he would encounter, and to handle with loving kindness, calmness, and strength the multitude of problems a great nation would present. He possessed much learning, and his training as a member of Pharaoh's house